Professor Zoom. Zoom. Reverse Flash. Who is this guy? What's the proper name for him? Let's make that very clear at the very beginning, since I did actually see a lot of comments covering that. Professor Zoom, or Reverse Flash, is Eobard Thawne. And then you have Zoom, or Hunter Zolomon, who belongs to the Wally West version of Professor Zoom. I understand there's a lot of confusion. They probably could do a much better job differentiating those two characters, especially when both of them literally look the exact same. They wear practically an identical suit to one another. But today is about Professor Zoom. Or should I say Eobard Thawne, the one that is more commonly known. And with Professor Zoom comes a lot of comments on people describing how sadistic he is, or how important this character truly is, or isn't, for Flash's future and Rogues Gallery. So as per usual, let's get into the comments and see what some of you had to say. Seasonal Shadow. It gets tiring after a while, constantly watching him sadistically ruin Barry's life and get away with that. If only Reverse Flash could suffer more. Well, I could only assume that the suffering this character really does endure is that at the end of the day, he does usually or always get thwarted by Barry Allen, and his plan to ruin his life never truly comes into fruition in the way that he wants it to, at least. However, even though this is what the character is all about, I do understand how boring it can get constantly seeing this character only having one plot line, to run back in time to then change the course of history and destroy Barry Allen in any way possible. At some point, it does become how many times can they do this before it gets boring or simply pointless, because we know at the end of the day, it's not going to work out for him. There doesn't seem to be too much of a driving force for this character outside of that one plot line. Eventually, you can only do this maybe once or twice, or maybe even 3 times until it's enough and you have to do something different. The Sausage Man. Yeah, all right. He should lead the Legion of Doom. I doubt taking orders from Luthor is something he'd ever be thrilled to do, and I feel like his powers would make the others more likely to listen to him out of fear. His prowess as a mastermind is often overlooked. He could be a Justice League level threat on his own, and should be a big bad for an entire phase of the DCU. Agreed on all fronts here. Now, specifically looking at the Legion of Doom to begin, I do think that is why I don't have him on my Legion of Doom squad, which is actually a video I've made a little while ago. But I do think it makes the team a little too powerful, and I just don't think he would naturally be okay with taking orders from someone like Lex Luthor. I think the one thing that would maybe make him consider joining the Legion of Doom is this promise that he would get to screw around with the Flash as he sees fit, but eventually I do believe he wouldn't even fall in line with the team anymore. He would just do his own thing. But yes, considering Eobard Thawne needs to come back in time, that causes a ripple effect for the future, and it could ruin a lot of things moving forward. The destined future of this universe could be in peril because of his existence in the past. That is something on its own that's worth a Justice League threat. That is something that, sure, we've seen the Flash take it upon himself to fix before, but this could also mean something even wider for everyone else. And Flashpoint was actually a very good example of how a wider universe would deal with the after effects of someone like Professor Zoom. Void Kitsune, or Kitsune, he is a better villain than the Joker. I think if you put 100 people in a room, 50 of them would agree with this and 50 wouldn't. The boat I am in, I do think Professor Zoom is an awesome character. I think he holds a lot of potential, and I think he is one of the most deadliest foes of the Flash. Better than the Joker? That's really tough. I think at the end of the day, I would still take Joker over Professor Zoom, because I think some of the greatest stories with Batman has come with Joker being involved in it. But I hold it against nobody who does think that Reverse Flash is the better or maybe even cooler character. Stephen Newhall. I don't think he should be a starting villain for The Flash. Allude to him over the course of a few films or seasons before revealing him, and when he is revealed, make it a massive story and major implications for The Flash and the DCU at large. The Reverse Flash, especially Eobard Thawne, is one of those villains that needs to be earned in order to be used in the DCU. He's a game-changing villain, and to make him a recurring one like he was in the CW was not ideal for his character. He's a force of nature who deserves to be utilized to full effect and have a massive impact on everything and everyone. I dare say he's a crisis-level villain, so use him to that effect. Exactly why I don't really think he belongs on any team-up of villains. I just don't think it works. I think he's far too powerful, and I think what he does in nature implicates the entire world, if not the multiverse. He's literally a multiversal threat. Using Professor Zoom as a first villain for The Flash really distorts the legacy of the character, considering both of these characters are literally tied in history no matter what happens. Almost in a way, there is no Flash without Professor Zoom, and vice versa. This is a thread that needs to be pulled on for a very long time, and I don't think Reverse Flash can simply just sprout up and attack the Flash whenever he wants. This is going to take some strategy. I also believe this has to be such a dire event, such a big event, that it can only happen one time. And I don't necessarily know, especially if you did it in movie form, Professor Zoom could ever truly come back. Professor Zoom is the type of character who has one chance to meticulously plan out how he's going to ruin Barry Allen's life. And if it works, perfect. But if it doesn't work, this is not something that can be attempted over and over and over again. The more he tampers with the past and the future is not just ruining things for Barry, he's ruining things for himself. Blurgatron. I think Professor Zoom is a little overused. I think characters like Mirror Master and the other rogues should get more of a spotlight. I agree, and as much as I do like Reverse Flash, a lot of what Flash's rogues gallery has become, at least in mainstream media, and a lot of what goes viral from his stories, even in comic books, always has to deal with the Speed Force and him going up against a Zoom, and if it's not Professor Zoom, it's someone like Godspeed or something like that. It does come to the point that the faster the Flash runs, because you're making him always increase and upgrade his speed. Every single issue with every single speedster character you have him fight, how does any other villain in his rogues gallery even remotely have a chance against him? As cool as Reverse Flash is, and as powerful as he is, because he can literally ruin Barry's life and the universe as he knows it, sometimes we don't need those types of threats. Sometimes we just need a little more of a smaller threat that we can still keep personal for the Flash. SR Stryker. He's being overused. I prefer Hunter Zolomon as he is more easier to understand, and it's more of a nightmare to write about Thawne as he's from the future and time traveling is the most frustrating thing to write. As much as time traveling is an interesting prospect for a story, or in all honesty can be interesting to write about, where the nightmare comes into play is what time travel can do to an overall story. It's not so cut and dry. It's not as easy as I'm going to go take a trip to the future and within an hour I'll come back to this time right now because now my presence in the future has altered things. When you deal with a butterfly effect in which super speed characters have to deal with almost every time they move, and the fact that Professor Zoom is a character coming from the future to ruin the past, we're dealing with a situation that even if you stepped on an ant that shouldn't have been stepped on, or you fly swat a fly from your face when you should have maybe done it 2 minutes from now, this could cause World War III. But I guess that is why sometimes in comic book storytelling, you do need to take reality away from it. Okay, now I'm joining up 2 comments here that have the total opposite opinion. Scarloey says, Reverse Flash is definitely the better name. And then Bythna says, Professor Zoom is a goofy name, but it's better than Reverse Flash. Too bad this character has been cemented in pop culture as Reverse Flash, though. This is very interesting. I don't have a favorite between the two. I know a lot of people on here are saying Reverse Flash is a better name, Professor Zoom is a silly name, which yeah, in a way, I kind of understand how it does sound a little bit silly. Reverse Flash, even though I do think it is a better name, to be honest with you, I do still think of him as Professor Zoom first and foremost. However, I wouldn't even go with these two names. I actually think it would simply be better if his name was just Thawne or Eobard Thawne, one or the other. I don't really know if he needs a code name. Reverse Flash and Professor Zoom do feel though like two names that the writers really did not know what they wanted to name this character, and that's what they just came up with at the end of the day. Their deadline was being met, so they had to do something. Maybe he simply does not need either of those and can just go by his real name. Eobard Thawne to me does not sound like someone that I would relatively be friendly with in the first place. CAC 17. It feels like the writers use him as a plot point device. It feels like the writers use him, Flash, Barry Allen, and Wally, and honestly the entire Flash family as plot point devices. Need a threat to be solved really quickly? He's got it under control. Need to go back or forward in time? They can do it. Need to travel to another dimension in the multiverse? They can do that as well. Need to revert and reboot the timeline and change things for a new continuity? I'm sure they got that covered as well. And along with Professor Zoom, I really love the Flash, but yes, sometimes that can be very boring to read or watch. King T. Him being the big bad for the DCEU could have been good. I think there's definitely a way they could have made this work, and based off of Jay Olivia, I think his name is, the storyboarder alongside with Zack Snyder when they were making those DC films, there were discussion that he was going to play a big role in the future. And realistically, we know Zack Snyder only wanted to make a certain amount of movies, and I'm not sure if they were going to do this, but it could have been honestly a fantastic plot device to have used. That way, after he was done his films, which really would not have taken that long at all, he would have finished his movies, I believe, last year. They could have rebooted using this character, changing history, or simply using a different timeline and universe in the multiverse, in which then they could have started with a brand new DC universe that maybe will last longer than the one that came before. Now, to go along with my unpopular opinion on Professor Zoom, Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne, I do want to pinpoint this comment because it'll allow me to go into my opinion. Munkri Lordenzo. Him having a different power set than the Flash would make him more interesting. So as much as I do like Professor Zoom, and in a tier list, I would probably put him at the very high of A's or somewhere in the S tier. I do think there's a character who's a little bit better than him, at least in my opinion, who wears the exact same suit and has a bit of a different power set, and that would be Zoom. Hunter Zolomon. I know, super confusing. They need to do better. They both offer hatred and almost jealousy for both of these characters, but they operate differently in their power set. And I think Hunter Zolomon's powers are a little more cooler than just matching speed for speed. Because whereas it does seem like Hunter Zolomon is moving at the speed of light, as if he does have super speed, he doesn't. He has a kinesis, and they call his chronokinesis, where he's literally manipulating time. He's so powerful. Every move he's making, he's actually shifting and manipulating time around him, which is why it looks like he is moving so fast. Whereas I do believe that Wally West's pinnacle speed is arguably one of the fastest that anyone has ever moved in the DC universe. Zolomon is so powerful with his time manipulation that at the speed or even the power at which he can manipulate time, it's faster than Wally West running at the speed of light, or even faster than that. He can even speed up or slow down his own personal timeline for a particular situation that will help him be able to maneuver in the moment if he needs to move faster or slower. And I think what makes the character really cool, especially when it comes to maybe a first appearance, for the longest time you think you're dealing with another speedster, and you're not. You're dealing with someone who's potentially even far more dangerous, because whereas speed affects time, he has the control control of time. But he is definitely a character who has been overshadowed by Eobard Thawne. But there it is, unpopular opinions and hot takes on the character of Professor Zoom. With all the comments and opinions that you heard from in this video, if you didn't get the chance to do so, leave some more unpopular opinions on this character. Let me know if you think he's the best Flash villain, the worst Flash villain, or whatever else you got in store. Also, as I always say, I do have a growing list of characters that we are doing this for, but if you have someone else in mind, let me know and I will add them to the list. But with that being said, everyone, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.